Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take the Black Live, the show where myself, Dan Selcke, editor at WintersComing.net, and Mia Johnson, editor at Fansided.com, talk all things, Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, fantasy, sci-fi, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, Last Kingdom, anything you can shake a stick at. Today, I come at you live and a little bit sick, as you can maybe tell. But one of our topics will be the coronavirus, so I think it's very appropriate.
How fitting. Oh, no.
That's in a minute. We also have, for people just joining us, a special guest star coming later in the program, so look forward to that.
Yes.
But for right now, I wanted to start off with some Game of Thrones news, some interesting stuff that's going on. HBO formally ended its tenancy, we'll say that, at Titanic Studios in Northern Ireland. Now, Titanic Studios has been the home of Game of Thrones since the very beginning, like 2011, or actually before 2011, when it started on. Like, it's always been here. Tons of it happened here. Frankly, I think it's historical.
Yeah.
At this point. Lots of good memories here. And that's part of why I want to talk about it, because there are so many good memories here. Like, we have this little slideshow here I put together.
Oh,
about
precious memories.
I mean, yeah, look at that. Look at Emilia Clarke in the Marine Daenerys's Myronese audience chamber or bedroom. Great. I love it. Yeah, look at it. It looks so fantastic. And there's Lady Lena Tyrell shaking the hand of the director. Yeah. Good times in King's Landing. This is all from a documentary, by the way, that was, I think, 18 hours at the Paint Hall, which is like the kind of inner studio they film at there.
Okay.
There's a half-pure Julius Bjornsson as the Mountain. And there's, of course, Lena Headey in the Red Keep throne room.
Wow.
In King's Landing. They have everything there.
Wow.
Very, very impressive. So the reason why I bring it up is because A, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But also it's interesting that they're ending it because, as we all know, they are making a Game of Thrones prequel series. And part of the question I'm having here is you have this great setup, I mean, you have this area where you have all this, you have this infrastructure laid, you have people who know the area. Like, why wouldn't you use it for your next project? And in fact, they did film the Game of Thrones prequel pilot Blood Moon here at Titanic. By the way, little sidebar, named Titanic Studios because it's where the Titanic was built.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering, I was like, what's the connection there? There has to be something.
Oh, yeah, fully built there.
Wow,
and then
that's awesome.
And then it sunk. I mean, yeah, it's a very storied place, and it's a film studio. It's just curious because you'd figure, I mean, wouldn't you figure that you'd want to use it over for whatever you're doing now? And the show they're making, House of the Dragon, I mean, it's set in King's Landing. A lot of it happens there.
Yeah. That's
whereas the past one was not.
When it comes to something like Game of Thrones, you kind of need that landscape of, what is this, Northern Ireland?
Northern Ireland, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not I've seen, obviously, Game of Thrones. I've seen some of the set pictures.
Yes, you have.
So I know, it's, the nice lush greenery, maybe some rolling hills. I can't, it's like, where else would they go? Like, okay, the next biggest thing would be London, Pinewood Studios, but that's in the heart of a gigantic city. They can film Star Wars there, but...
Is that where it's filmed?
I believe Star Wars was filmed on Pinewood. But if you are going to, for example, Star Wars, when they had to film, the greenery scenes, then they would go, on location to, who knows where in, the jungle.
Oh, yeah. And Game of Thrones has a very wide array of locations. They spent a lot of time in Croatia. Spent a lot of time in Spain. Spain was a huge one for them.
Yeah.
I had one theory about, since most of House of the Dragon, which is, again, is about the... I love my voice right now, by the way. The Targaryen Civil War, known as the Dance of the Dragons. A lot of it takes place in the south of Westeros, where it's a little sunnier. Winter is not going to be a huge problem for this one. It was always coming in the last one. Here, it's not a giant deal.
So that is going to... so for this upcoming...
The theory was that I read, maybe... because there's not a whole lot set in the north, where it's all rainy and dreary all the time. Northern Ireland wouldn't be a good fit. Because they had everything there. They not only filmed at that place, they also went to the surrounding areas, filmed things, and the rolling, beautiful green hills of Northern Ireland, which are famously kind of overcast all the time and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of so I guess they need that Mediterranean vibe, like you said, Spain and all that. I don't really know about big film studios out there, but maybe they have to start maybe they were looking.
There's also Australia, which is a very big happening area for film
Yeah,
production right
yeah.
now. I mean, that's another thing about why it's a little sad that they're leaving this, is because it pumped in, like, it put Northern Ireland on the map as a
Yeah.
like destination for filming. Game of Thrones did. It pumped like hundreds of millions of dollars into the economy just for the production alone, not even counting tourism and stuff. It did a lot. And now that studio is used by a lot of other people to make other projects, other film stuff. So they've done a lot. I'm a little sad to see them go.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the explanation is innocent and not like, I don't know, part of me wants to go like full conspiracy and go like, oh God, it's canceled.
Right.
We're not doing it.
No, don't panic.
But I get it. And as Louise says, King's Landing was filmed all over Europe. Northern Ireland was mainly Winterfell in the north. That's very true. Although, as we saw, they did film, like, inside that place. They had all the sets you can
All
dream
the
of.
sets, yeah.
By the way, I thought about it before. I think we discussed that. Like, are they going to just, like, recreate? Because, again, like, the prequel will take place... Like, those locations are still around.
Yeah.
Like, the Red Keep is still around. The throne room, like, shouldn't look that different. The Iron Throne shouldn't look that different. Like, are they going to just keep it as everything's going to be the same? Or do they just go new versions?
You know,
I'm for that.
new versions. I guess, like, when it comes to set building, like, they can kind of, like, if they're fine with, like, deconstructing the set and putting it back together again, like, you know, in replica detail, it's fine. Go let them do it. But... yeah, to kind of lose that and to throw it all away is, you know, a little sad. It's a little bittersweet.
But I mean, and again, there was a comment from the head of NI Screen. It was known from a relatively early stage that Northern Ireland was not in a position to deliver in location and other ways on what was required for the prequel series. So they thought about this. I'm sure it'll go well.
Yeah.
And just thanks, Titanic
so
Studios, for
long.
serving HBO well these past, God, like 12 years or so.
Oh, man.
We'll miss ya. And there are still like museums there and everything.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we move on?
Ooh, yeah. Do
So,
you wanna
okay.
move on? Yeah.
What's that?
Go ahead.
All right. So, viewers, we have a special treat for you. We have a famous Take the Black Live veteran, known around these parts as Little Fella, to discuss a topic of great import to the world of pop culture today. Let's bring on Joshua Hill, known to some of our That's right.
Oh, why, thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Josh.
Thank you, Dan.
I'm sorry. I mean, again,
hello,
it was
everybody.
just...
Hi, Julie and everybody.
God, I'm kind of sick. Sorry about that. Just, I told you last time. I'm sorry. It was funny. Like one of our commenters said, like I'm kind of quoting like, I was just saying blah, blah, blah. I miss you all. I like to see that other little fella come back again too.
Little fella's back.
Little fella's back. Well, good to see you, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I would be doing better if I could see the James Bond movie a little sooner.
Okay, yeah. So this story we're going to talk about today, Louise Piper, Little fella's back. Oh, I hope that thing catches on so badly.
Little fella.
Yeah. Okay.
It's better than Little Finger,
It is better than Little Finger.
but hey, what can you do?
We can put up a hold
I
for that.
found my way
effect.
back somehow. Just when you count me out, right back in we go.
Yeah, I wanted to have you on because you are, like, correct me if I'm wrong, a pretty big James Bond
I
fan,
am.
right?
I love
Like,
James Bond.
You have always seemed to talk, or just, I don't know, notice like little references you make.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything to that, by the way? You just always love the movies.
No, there's a love for the movie, a fandom for the movies. So,
for
and the
sure.
books.
The books too?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
I'm very
Hardcore.
learned. I'm well read.
Very nice.
Ian Fleming.
But yeah, there's a story today where the new James Bond movie, No Time to Die, the
Yeah.
25th one, I think, and the last one, Daniel Craig as Mr. Bond, is going to be delayed from April, I think it's coming out like the 8th, all the way back to November. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because, kind of like me, it's because of possibly the coronavirus.
Yes.
So the idea is that, you know, there are these theaters in a lot of Asia and Europe, from like Italy to Korea to Japan to, of course, China,
Yeah.
where theaters are closing down. And they're like, okay, so we don't want to open now because we won't get, you know, ticket sales in those places. We're going to push it back. So hopefully it'll blow over by that point.
Maybe.
What do you make of that, Josh?
That they're pushing it back because of the coronavirus?
Or just in general, yeah.
Okay, so I'm of two minds of it. One is I don't want the coronavirus to be a problem. So that kind of
Yeah,
complicates the
me
second
too.
point,
Cheers
which
to
is
that.
The James Bond doesn't feel like a summer blockbuster movie. Like these last Daniel Craig movies have come out in the fall, in November.
Yeah.
When do you have the movie marathons on, the Bondathons? They're always in November. Even when you're on a Bond off year, when there's not a movie coming out, there are Thanksgiving marathons. You have those on Sci-Fi or USA or wherever. A lot of people, like for example, GoldenEye. A lot of people are familiar with GoldenEye because of the video game, but also because that was on all the time over the holidays or Thanksgiving, and there's this association.
I've seen you watching it on your desk.
Yeah, and I do watch it on my desk outside of Thanksgiving, but I'm also a Bondaholic. But there is this association, kind of the way that now we've come to associate Star Wars with Christmas in a lot of ways.
Totally.
Or like the Doctor Who Christmas special. Game of Thrones was very associated with spring.
Yeah,
Like, that's why
absolutely.
it was so weird when
Spring
Game
is
of
coming,
Thrones,
fun.
the last season of the show came out, or we had, or was it the year before?
It was the year before. It was
we
like
had
in July.
delay.
It was a little strange.
It came out in July. It was a little weird because we so closely associated. It's our own bio clock telling us, oh, it's this time of year. It's time for Game of Thrones. It's April. I need Game of Thrones now, and I don't have it. And it feels a little weird watching it in the summer.
Sure.
Same thing with James Bond. It felt weird. It's not even like officially summer movie. It was coming out in April. So that wasn't even like it was a blockbuster.
Like that's only summer in the sense of Hollywood summer movie season summer.
Yeah.
Like it's not summer.
And so I didn't understand that decision to put it out that early. When you've established that fall is, first of all, the time that James Bond movies have historically come out, specifically Daniel Craig movies. And also that's like peak prestige cinema. Like that is when you're pushing your Oscar movies out. You're pushing. If we're talking about, we're associating Game of Thrones with April and spring.
Sure.
We've come to associate the fall, October, November, December, specifically October and November, with these are when the Oscar movies are coming out. These are when the capital F films are being released. That the important movies that we're going to need to talk about as we enter the awards race.
That's very true. But do you
That's
consider
when
James Bond one of those? Is it considered an important
I don't know.
film?
You wouldn't, but then, Sam Mendes comes and directs Skyfall, and all of a sudden we're like, well, is it getting Best Picture? So, Cary Fukunaga's involved. So,
He is involved.
James Bond has taken a lot of steps from the Roger Moore years of the submarine cars.
Unfortunately, yeah.
To now we are actually attracting prestige filmmakers that want to come. I mean, Roger Deakins was the cinematographer on the last two Bond movies. Or he was on Skyfall.
Right.
That's, pretty impressive when you're considering this is a movie about a guy who runs around the world with a gun killing people.
And bursting through walls of drywall just bursting out. I love your passion. Yes. So you're in favor of this, I'm hearing. So you are okay with it being
I'm not
moved.
in favor of the reason behind the move.
No one's
I'm
in
not
favor of the
pro-coronavirus,
coronavirus. No.
But,
Okay, but you're okay.
COVID-19 is a very Bond sounding
It actually really is. Like that could be an
COVID-19
organization of villains
specter or
with all of them who have like cats in their laps. But so you're okay with the concept of it being moved to November. You were a little mad that it was in April in the first place?
I am.
That's what I'm hearing. I thought you would come in here and say like, I want to see it now.
Well, I do want to see it now.
Right.
But if it has to be moved, like I talked myself into, there are worse things than being able to see a James Bond movie sooner than expected. But now this does feel a little bit more comfortable. But on the flip side of that coin is, does this mean that the movie's not particularly good?
I mean, I doubt that. I mean, again, it seems like the reason is because of COVID-19, not because of it's bad or good or anything.
Well, that's always kind of in the back of your mind.
It's a purely economic decision as the press release put it out there.
Well, the other train of thought that I had when I was thinking about this was, what does this do for Black Widow? What does this do for some of these other blockbuster movies?
Yeah.
Are they also going to move if the coronavirus continues to be a thing? Because
that's
a James
a big question.
Bond movie, moving a tentpole film,
that close to release too. It means it was a month off.
Yeah.
I feel like that's unusual, right?
We had Super Bowl commercials. We had special
We had
issues
trailers,
of magazines. We're starting our our tie-ins with
Mm-hmm.
all of our merchandise, and we have to put that all on hold to move it. That's pretty significant. And if James Bond can do that, a cultural icon, a tentpole that people are going to go to see that.
Mm-hmm.
If that can get moved, then what does that do with Black Widow and some of these other big movies that we have coming out in the summer?
It's a good point. Do you think the entire summer movie schedule might be obliterated? Are we going to see the Eternals next year now?
I don't know if we move that. Come on, what are we doing? We need the... Maybe.
I know, right?
Easy there, Selcke.
This is an illustrative example of why we need to do this.
No,
I'm kidding. I don't have the coronavirus. I have a cold.
No, Selke's good. I'm here in solid. Look.
Why would you do
Selcke,
that?
We are in solidarity.
Josh.
Well, I've got until November to watch James Bond. I can heal up. It'll be fine.
Okay,
Get it out
that's
of
a
my
good point.
system. But
You know, you're young. You'll probably be okay.
It's
Still, I wouldn't have done that. All right. Well, I'm really glad that you. I love that you have so much passion
Yes.
about this. I like hearing your perspective, and obviously, I don't want the release schedule of movies to be all mucked up because of this. I think it's kind of inevitable a little bit though, because I mean, like I read like China's going to lose $2 billion in box office revenue this year because like there are like 70,000 theaters closed there.
Yeah.
Like obviously through Italy, Korea, Japan. Like things are going to be. I bet there'll be like a giant lull in like a couple of years from now. You know, when like movies that would have been shot and coming out, like now are going to be just weren't made or pushed back. But obviously more important is that ourselves and our loved ones are kept safe and healthy and wash your hands and don't touch too much stuff, all that stuff. But the movies are also a problem, and I do want to see them.
yes, it's what James Bond would want as a person who routinely saves the world.
Okay, we'll let you go here, Josh. But just really quick, the movie itself. Are you looking forward to it?
I am. It's
Does it like ring any bells for you? Like this, you have a sense that it's going to be good, bad, in between.
I was a little hyped up from the trailer because Daniel Craig has that swaggery, blustery mantra to him again. The way it, because it's his last movie, so we're kind of tying a bow on the whole Daniel Craig.
Is it like 10 years now?
Yeah, 2005 was
over 10 years.
2000
Cool.
was Casino Royale. So he's kind of got that senioritis thing going on where he knows this is the last one, so you might as well go for it. I mean, I'm sure he got a pretty fine paycheck to come back after said he'd rather slash his wrists than play James Bond again. But here we are. Cary Fukunaga.
Of course.
We've got a lot behind there, so I'm hyped. I think it's going to be a good wrap up, and then we get to have the whole conversations about what's next for Bond, which is going to be plenty of fun. I'm
Richard
sure
Madden.
Sure, I'll be back to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll have you
Little
back.
man will return.
The little fellow. We'll have you back in November to talk about how it went. Thanks for coming on, Josh. Always a pleasure.
Always. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
All right, and now while Mia comes back, I'll entertain you with. Okay, there's a comment again, and there's Josh Hill, eternally beautiful, skinny with glasses. Josh Hill. I'm glad he wore the glasses. He's been wearing contacts lately.
And I'm back. It's good that he wore the. I feel like he knew specifically today we wanted him, so he had to wear his glasses.
I mean, I'd asked him like a couple hours ago. It was fortuitous.
He just knew, though. He just knew.
Do you have any Bond opinions?
Oh, Bond opinions? Yeah, not as passionate about Josh about it.
He likes it.
He loves it. I'm just like a casual viewer. It's something that my dad really liked. He liked all the old classic Bond, so it's just kind of like through osmosis. I was like, yeah, James Bond is cool.
Yeah, that's about me.
Yeah.
Like, I watched them. As Louis says, Josh is mega intense about Bond. Who knew he could be so serious?
Yeah.
I didn't know either, Louise. Okay, something that you're serious about, though, or more serious, though,
Goodness.
is that galaxy far, far away is Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I find it remarkable that we are a couple months out from the Rise of Skywalker
it's
now.
March. This thing came
It's
out in
March.
December.
And it's still kind of finding ways to irritate people.
Yes.
Although I am kind of getting Game of Thrones season 8 post flashbacks where I'm reading the stuff and I'm like, this isn't that big of a deal, but let's talk about it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's still.
You can tell me if it's a big deal or not. So there is this issue of kind of like these bits of information about Star Wars vs. Skywalker, the final film in the Skywalker saga, kind of coming out in ways that weren't involved in the actual films. There's this novelization that came out recently by Ray Carson that revealed, for instance, that the Emperor Palpatine, as we saw him in the movie, was a clone.
Yeah.
And living in a clone body, and but it contained his actual spirit. And I guess, and there are other things. Like there's also like this thing on like the Rise of Skywalker visual dictionary that like told you how the Emperor built that giant fleet he had, which was kind of like a thing in the movie. I was like, so where did all those come from?
Yeah,
They're just kind of there.
WTF.
So the question for there is like, I mean, like I hesitate to like inscribe insidious intent to this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll start with this.
Yes.
Is it all right for a company like Disney to put information that I think you could argue is relevant to enjoying the movie like not in the movie. Like put it
Yeah.
in a novelization or whatever a visual dictionary is. Is that a book? I
Yeah.
don't even know.
The visual diction, yeah, it's a book. It's a book, and it's got like pictures, and it's a picture book.
What do you make of that
But
practice?
but yeah, as far as this practice, to me, it's like this clone one specifically, because we're going to talk about another one. The clone one specifically feels like a bit of information that probably could have been left in there, or probably just not mentioned at all, like not even in the book.
I mean, my thing is like I'm not sure it makes a giant difference.
Yeah, I mean, okay,
Like,
so
it's fun.
I think my thing is more so like everybody was kind of like, how and why is Palpatine back in the first place if Darth Vader killed him in the sixth movie?
Yeah, I remember that.
And a lot of people, some of
Down
them
a
were
shaft.
calling, some of them were calling like BS because you're like, well, yeah, sure, sometimes this happens and you bring a character back from the dead and blah, 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 we've seen it all the time, but it's still kind of cheap, to bring back a character who's dead and not let them be dead. And so for them to backtrack in the book and say, oh, it's because he was a clone, it's kind of like, I mean, I guess, sort of thing. So I feel like with some careful planning and consideration, me personally, I would have liked to seen that in the movie. I feel like it's kind of like a detail where I thought it was like the actual Palpatine, and he used this blanket statement like, there's the mysterious ways that the dark side works or something like that. And you're like, no, that's BS. If you had just told me that he was a clone and, which also his appearance, because his appearance was kind of like decrepit and he was like,
I mean,
really,
it was.
really,
I thought it was
really
just like
old and-
it's been a minute since we saw you last.
Yeah,
Like time
right.
happens.
Right. So, I mean, even if he had a better looking clone body, that would have made sense, right? Why would you
You know,
put
why not put yourself
yourself
in a hot clone body?
Yeah. If I had to clone myself, I mean, let's be honest. So to me, that was just like a forehead smack moment. Now, to be fair, though, there was a.
I just don't think there was much thought put into it. So I'm
Oh,
hesitant to
100%.
like get so upset about it.
I get it.
Like,
I
that's
get
my
it.
perspective.
I have seen some things, though. One that said, who is that? J.J. Abrams wanted to put a clone, specifically clone Palpatine in Episode 7, the first one to kick all this off.
Really?
But before this movie came out, actually, Ian McDiarmid, who plays Palpatine, he was at Brussels Comic Con, and he was like, oh yeah, Palpatine is more clone, less man. Which,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, which kind of like slipped under the radar until this came out, which was like, when he said that, I think that was like a couple weeks, no more than like a week or two. So it's kind of interesting that I guess it was there, but they were just never like, oh yeah, I guess we could have told you that.
I mean, like, I wonder if this kind of thing is just like a natural consequence of like the sort of like strategy that Disney has now, like where it's this thing where you have to do homework to understand what you're watching. Like, I feel like they're going to go with Marvel a little bit. They're talking
Yeah.
about all these new TV series are going to feed into the movies. Like, if you have this broad an approach to how you make your content, you can't help but like this kind of thing will happen. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to spread around the information. And I mean, in this case, I think it's just like, I'm sure the novelist is just like, I have some little bit of freedom here, blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
But I think that kind of thing is sort of inevitable. Like, because it's just too big to keep a hold of everything.
In a way, yeah. And I think especially, I feel like the strengths of the novelization would be because we have characters and we can hear their inner like thoughts and
Sure.
narration. That's something good. So like, yeah, if you said Kylo Ren felt extremely proud to be there, that's a detail that I wouldn't have cared that they'd thrown in.
Like this from Diane, I thought he might have been a Horcrux like Voldemort.
Oh, if only. But yeah, so on top of that, I think moving on to the next extraneous detail, which I think they worked a little too hard to get into this, had to deal with Rey and Kylo Ren's super steamy, sizzling kiss at the end.
Is that what you want to call it? Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's not what Disney wants to call it.
Sure.
So what had happened there was another passage in the book where it's talking about the kiss, and they really go out of their way to make it seem just strictly platonic. Did we?
A
Oh,
kiss
yeah,
of
yeah, we've got
gratitude,
the- yeah.
acknowledgement of their connection. celebration that they'd found each other at last. It is not saying like lust for his hot dying body.
Yeah, it is 100% not. It's like kiss of gratitude, acknowledgement of their connection, celebrate, like three adjective sort of things, three describers to nail the hammer, nail it in, and to say they are not romantically linked in any
It's
way.
a platonic tongue kiss.
It's yeah, yeah. Me and my best friends do it all the time. No. So I don't know where that came from or why they all of a sudden decided to make that pivot. The only thing I could think of, and please protect my Twitter account, is that the so-called Raylos have been fervent. They have been active 3 months and counting with the like the whole save Ben Solo thing. Like they hate that he died. Well, they hate that he was redeemed and then immediately died afterwards. And of course they love the relationship, but they like every single Star Wars tweet, save Ben Solo. I don't want to see this anymore unless you bring Ben Solo back. How?
Like,
That's
like that gets into like the relationship between a company like Disney.
Yeah.
And just like goes to show you like that you don't really have control over a story that big.
Mm-hmm.
Like Disney obviously doesn't want this love that never dies or whatever the shippers want. But it's not really up to them,
Yeah.
Like once you put it out there, it becomes its own entity.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
this is just like they're trying to fight back, but it's like, can you do that?
Yeah.
In a world where like your story is only yours in theory. Like once it gets online, people just take it and do whatever they want with it. And that's not a bad thing. It's just the way things are. But again, it's like trying to maybe a futile exercise in trying to manage perception of a story that, again, once
Yeah.
in the ether, it's out there,
it's
man.
there. People have come up with, and I mean, there are so many other. Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley are both distinguished actors. J.J. Abrams, I assume, knows what he's doing as a director. So if you say, "Hey guys,
You
in this
think-
scene as an actor, I want you to show your gratitude for them."
Mm-hmm.
If I were Daisy Ridley or Adam Driver, I wouldn't immediately go, "Yeah, I'm gonna, drive my tongue down this person's mouth."
What if I grab something?
Abrams is like, that's it, we're going with that cut. No, so to me, it all seems extraneous, at least this part, and it just has me, going, what?
I mean,
why?
personally, I always hope that this is the last time we talk about Rise of Skywalker, and it never
I know.
seems to be.
I know, it's like knock on
So-
wood.
so
There's
we'll
no
see what
wood around me.
happens.
Oh, this is wood.
I want to
But-
fuck it up too. It's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's, please.
Oh, speaking of moving on, okay, so for our kind of like what are we watching this
Yeah.
week segment, I wanted to bring up something I've been watching since it started, and now we're a week away from the finale. The finale is this Sunday. That I'm now, like, now that I've watched 9 to 10 episodes, I really love this series.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
The Outsider on HBO. I know that I've mentioned it here before, but I never really dug into it that much.
Yeah.
Okay, it is a Stephen
Let
King
us- yeah.
adaptation of a book called The Outsider about like a small Georgia town where there's a child murder, and then it slowly kind of put it together that, and the murder gets blamed on Jason Bateman, although he didn't do it.
Ooh.
It's actually a more supernatural thing involved. I've really loved the way that it's been kind of slowly building. I think it's done a great job of like keeping the tension tight throughout. Like 9 episodes in of a thriller, usually like they lose my interest. Like
Yeah.
it's hard to keep you on the hook for that long. Like they do a great job of like kind of building the detail of what is involved with the monster, who is, we'll just call him the Outsider, shall we?
Okay.
I think that's the name. Without like giving away the whole game, so keeping it mysterious. The cast is, and again, 9 episodes in, tremendous. You have Oscar nominee Cynthia Aviro as Holly Gibney, who is this kind of like very, like almost like preternaturally observant woman who's almost like a little bit autistic even. Like she has trouble with like day-to-day activities. She's like really, really smart at her job. She's a private investigator. It's Ben Mendelsohn as Detective Ralph Anderson, who is like having trouble believing in the reality of the outsider, but he has to come around to it. Mia, he's gonna stop it, but she believes immediately. Their conflict is great. It's a really deep cast of like their partners, people involved in the investigation, people who are helping the thing. I've just been really, really impressed by it. And now, I mean, oh, that's
Oh, God,
The
what
Outsider.
is that?
That's The Outsider.
Oh.
Oh my God, it freaked me out so bad I saw it first. Like, they give you like these little glimpses of him. Like, that picture is like blown up and lightened. It like shows up like really, really quick and then it's gone. Like, you don't see that in motion.
Oh.
I was freaked out by that, frankly, when I first saw it, like for a while. I was like watching it like this with my dog in my lap. Really, really liking it. And again, I've just been impressed with how consistently good it's been. So now I'm thinking, like, if they land the plane, in case he's watching, I'm not okay with this. Have you watched that?
Oh, no.
Netflix?
No, the Netflix one.
Yeah, I have not watched that yet. Maybe I'll get around to it. But yeah, if they land this, I'm thinking, like, this could be the best Stephen King adaptation since The Shining, like in 1980. It's that good. I think it's very, very good. And I encourage people to watch it.
Have you kept up with like Stephen King's works, like the books and the movies and all?
I
these
am
separate...
a casual Stephen King
Okay.
fan. You know, I read it. I read The Shining back in the
Okay.
day. I read like Six Past Midnight. I've read a bunch of his books. I've seen a lot of his movies. God, there are a lot of Stephen King movies out there, aren't there?
Yeah.
I mean, since the 70s, this guy's been having stuff. You know, I saw the original Carrie. I saw both Shinings. So yeah, I am literate in Stephen King.
Okay.
I'm not an expert because like that guy has written a
there's so
crap
much,
ton
yeah.
of things. Just like I don't know how he writes them. I don't know how everybody reads them. But and you know they're like up and down, right? Like there are
Yeah.
great Stephen King movies. There's like Misery is a great one I love with Kathy Bates. It's a wonderful one. I love the original Shining with Jack Nicholson. I think it's a great movie. I think this is really strong. And then there are like crap ones, right?
Yeah.
There's like no one likes Dreamcatcher from 2002.
Yeah, it's a swinging pendulum because the book could be good, you know, whatever work Stephen King puts out, but it's, you know, up to like the director or whoever else is involved to make it, you know, something worthwhile. So, yeah, I guess the last Stephen King thing I saw was It, the
Which
new
was-
one.
Okay. The first one was better than the second one, I think.
Okay. And then I peeked at another. It was the Hulu series with James.
Castle Rock?
No. It was like the Time Traveler or something like that. James Franco, and it's about like stopping the JFK assassination or
yeah.
something like that.
I heard about that one. I heard it was
Yeah.
good. I did not
So
see
it's like,
it or
yeah, they
read
all
it.
have like their different tones to one another. So it's not like, you know, Stephen King is directing every single one. So it's like you really have to pick, like, is this going to be a good Stephen King adaptation or am I going to have to wait this one out? So I don't know.
Like
Yeah,
that guy could like scribble some graffiti on a bathroom stall and someone would option it.
Yeah. Like, all right, it's time to put this into production. I don't know. Yeah, it's sounding interesting now. I realized that when I would watch, like, I did pick up Succession. I'm like,
Oh,
only
did
like
you?
2 episodes in because I've got all the other things going on. But I noticed, I was like, oh, every time I watch Succession or Westworld, they show me an advertisement for The Outsider. And I love Ben Mendelsohn. I think he's really cool. So
I like his voice.
yes,
He has kind of like a quiet.
yeah, the
voice.
quiet with the
With, like, a little bit of, like-
Australian twinge, right?
Is he Australian?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
not
I don't know
British.
that.
Yeah.
He plays a guy from Georgia here. It's very convincing. His voice has
Oh,
like
yeah.
this rounded quality to it. I really like. It's just very, very calming.
Yeah, I like him in Captain Marvel. That's a good
Who
role.
was in Captain Marvel?
He played a guy who looked like himself,
Okay.
but he was
really?
also a Skrull.
I don't recall.
So if you
I'm
see
sure it
him
was
with the
great.
makeup, it's really funny. But yeah, that's something worth me giving a chance. If
I think
it's
so. And again, like it is freaky, but
Yeah.
it's not scaring you just to scare you. I think
Mm-hmm.
the characters are really well done on both the writing and the acting side. So there's something real to hold on to.
I get
It's
it,
not
yeah.
just blah and then like walk away. I am scared for all of them going into the finale,
Oh,
which
no.
I think is a good thing. Like you have me scared for these people.
Yeah.
So I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing it wrap
stakes
up.
are high.
The stakes are high. The struggle is real. And
Oh, wow.
you watched the Doctor Who
Yeah,
season finale. What
oh
you think of
boy.
that?
You know what? It was really kind of fun. I think it was like 90 minutes or something. And so I have a short attention span or something. So it's like when you're walking down a hallway and then it gets longer and longer and longer. I'm like looking at the little bar, like, are we only like 20 minutes in? But no,
Actually, a bad sign when you're doing that in something.
I think it might be my attention span. I do think 90 minutes kind of is like pushing it, hour to 90-minute range.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what they really did deliver? It kind of, this finale, or the episode as a whole, kind of had a feel of like the David Tennant era.
Cool.
And maybe it's because of the kind of like main antagonists were the Cybermen, and of course the Master. But yeah, there was just something kind of like, I like it when it gets a little cheesy and it's not like super serious and
Which
all that.
does happen on Doctor
Yeah,
Who from time to
yeah.
time.
I feel like Stephen Moffat, when it was his turn, he really was kind of, I don't know, he was kind of back and forth between the serious and sort of cheesy, but Russell T Davies was really into that. So, as far as the plot of everything, and I won't give everything away, there was this whole big mystery I talked about last week about like this timeless child and why do people keep talking about it? And so the Master, who's like, you know, taunting the Doctor, he's like, oh, I know what it's all about. I discovered this really big mystery about Gallifrey. And at the end of the day, there's this like really huge twist about like the Doctor's identity and like all these things. It kind of like to me felt like they were opening up a new gateway to be like, hey, if any other writers want to play with the Doctor's origins, or you know, really, they really opened the door to some new stuff in the Doctor Who lore that I don't think necessarily brings any plot holes about, which is always good. I think it's open enough for most people to be like, yeah, this makes sense, and I don't think there's anything in past
Enough, at
seasons
least.
to like negate that. Maybe aside from a few things here or there.
Sure. I mean, like when you're dealing with like a 60-year-old show,
Yeah.
I think the best you can hope for is like it makes sense enough.
Yeah. And it also, I mean, for the most part, it gave them an excuse to keep the show going, which is a whole other thing on its own. They're like, how can we create an interesting backstory, but also make sure that this can never end? So
Very important.
believe me, the Doctor Who
Don't
will
make
be
me laugh. It's painful.
will be going on for a very long time. But the other thing is that it left off on a cliffhanger, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was waiting for this really great payoff, and they were finally wrapping things up, and then something happens to the Doctor, and they're like, oh, by the way, we'll be back for the holiday special. I was like,
Right.
oh
Holiday
my
special.
gosh. Yeah, so it's gonna be, they haven't picked for sure if they want to do a Christmas special or a New Year's special, but it looks like it's like already filmed. So if anybody just wants to leak it right now, I would not be
A
opposed.
Christmas or New Year's special? We have to wait that long?
I know, yeah. I don't even know if it's gonna be Christmas
You
themed.
could do a 4th of July special, which makes a lot of sense for a British show.
Yeah, for BBC. They're like, yeah, why not? But yeah, I'm like, the Christmas specials make sense usually because they're like themed around Christmas. And I think a fun running gag was like whenever it snowed, it wasn't really snow, it was like alien ash or something like that. So I'm looking forward, I guess.
So yeah,
to see
it
what
sounds like
happens.
you're on board the Doctor Who
Yeah,
train.
yeah. I really
Because some
like,
aren't. Like the ratings are down.
Yeah.
They're losing their companions apparently.
It was a fun season. I really, I think Jodie Whittaker's kind of found her way, and
Cool.
the companions are hit or miss, but I'm still, and I was like, no, I still like Doctor Who. I felt kind of, it was fun kind of like jumping back into things after so long.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Louis Drayton asked me, "You okay, Dan?" I'm just a little. I just have a little cold. It's
Yeah,
fine.
he's
Not the
surviving.
coronavirus at all, probably. And but you know, we'll see next week, won't we? Anyway,
Come
well,
back,
we
the
have.
seat is empty. Oh, guys, that's not nice.
It hurts to laugh. All right. We'll be back next week.
Yeah.
I think we'll do a little Westworld preview because that's coming up,
Yeah.
and I know that you are
Yes.
you've studied up on that in
I've
a
studied
big
up.
way.
I am ahead. If you know
You
what
are
I
ahead?
mean.
You're subscribers.
I am very much ahead.
In the meantime, if you want to, rate us on iTunes or wherever podcasts are available, give us an 18-star review, a glowing recommendation, that would be appreciated. But if not, I just have things to do with your time. And we'll be back next week, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on the Wintergreen Facebook page for more discussion, analysis, reviews, and we will see you then. Adios, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, and thanks, Jen.